Welcome to Reactive Consciousness. This is the episode for January 26, 2017. I'm your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost here.
So, this is a brand new segment that we have here for each week. This is going to be a topical segment. This is our second episode, and it seems like our first episode did rather well. We had a lot of viewers carried over from our normal episodes and
listeners.
Well, they're viewing the YouTube version. Duh. But yeah, once again, I want to go through a little bit of explaining here. We came up with the name of it after we recorded, so if that didn't come through during the podcast last time, I wanted to let everybody know that this is what we're going to be calling it. And we're also going to label it per the date, rather than an episode number like our normal episodes. Now, this podcast will be centered around topical items and also items that are a little bit longer-winded, that require a little bit more attention from us. So, this will give us a chance to go into more detail with fewer topics, and also react to things in the news, in pop culture and geek culture, and stuff that we care about in particular. So without further ado, I am going to talk about joysticks. So this is something that I
love talking about.
Yeah, I love talking about this right now. I'm all about it. So the reason why it's topical is Kamba, the Chinese company that I introduced a couple episodes ago, is releasing a full line of PlayStation branded joysticks. They have 3 different ones.
What makes them special if they're PlayStation branded?
So what's good about them is that they are extremely well made. Typically, when you think about like Chinese items, you kind of like think that they're cheap and that kind of thing. They kind of have like a stigma of being cheaply manufactured, and these are expertly made, just as well made as the Japanese ones. In fact, they outclass a lot of the Japanese varieties in a lot of ways.
Oh wow! So okay,
it's really cool. These sticks, and it's also unusual that out of all of the joystick companies, and most one of them is two of them are American, Razer and Mad Catz, and one of the major ones is Japanese, Hori. The one that got the official branding was a Chinese company, kind of like the country that's an outlier, to be honest, in the video game world at least. So it's really neat. They made good joysticks for PS3, starting with PS3 and moving on up, and also 360. So what's cool about them is that they have 3 different classes of joystick. They have the drone, which is like the entry level one. They're like around $130. The topical thing is that the middle one just got released. They're Obsidian joystick, and also the one that I ordered.
Are they black?
Yes, this one is black. I mean, you could probably already tell. This one is black and silver. It has some chrome stainless steel finish kind of thing going on. And it also has a blue accent lighting on the sides, LED
That's pretty
lights.
Neat.
And it has heft to it, but it's not so heavy that it's ridiculous. So heft is important on an arcade joystick because you want to be able to put some force into using the joystick and it not move all over the place.
Yeah, especially because like when you're inputting, at least in fighting games, the moves, you're usually doing it under severe pressure and stress.
Oh yeah,
and
you're getting really into it.
Force it so you can do things fast and not have to worry about breaking the stick off.
Absolutely. And then another cool thing about all of their joysticks now is that they use Sanwa parts, which are the most trusted Japanese arcade button and joystick maker.
Okay.
So they generally the 2 companies that are generally the most popular are Sanwa and Seimitsu. And for the longest time, all the other companies kind of made their own knockoffs of those types of buttons. Those are Japanese style buttons. You could press them very quickly, and they don't have kind of like a clicky sound. Whereas HRAP buttons are, or HAP buttons, I'm sorry. HAP buttons are the American style ones with like cherry switches on the bottom that make like the loud clicky noises.
Mm.
So a lot of companies have been making their own knockoff Saimetsu or Sanwa buttons, and they just weren't as good. They didn't hold up as long, and they didn't have the precision, and they didn't look as nice. So Kamba actually stopped using their own parts. They had their own parts.
They stopped using their own parts?
Yeah, they stopped using their own parts because they noticed that people were buying their joysticks and swapping out their buttons anyway. Yeah, so what's cool about joystick culture is that like the people that are really into them modify their joystick to exactly the way that they feel comfortable with.
It's like a PC, basically.
Yeah, it's really neat in that regard, and that's kind of why I like it. It appeals to my tinker kind of personality. Tinker.
You like to do things with your hands.
Yeah, I do, and I think that I really enjoy putting things together and also getting things exactly the way I like them. And the joysticks that they make are also easy to mod. Before, in past days, joysticks would come fully formed with no intention of anybody opening them up and replacing the joystick to one that they liked, or putting the kind of buttons that they like in. Nowadays, they're made so that you can actually easily slide off the wire. They're not even soldered on anymore. You can slide it off very easily and replace the buttons. So you can put a new button in there if they're getting worn down, which is really neat. And you could put in a different joystick if you prefer a different type. You could replace the ball top if you like a bat top, let's say, a bat style joystick. Some people like that because it gives you more leverage because it makes it longer. And it also allows you to replace the gate at the bottom of joysticks. So the gate is actually what limits the movement of the joystick. So the normal Japanese gate on a joystick is actually square shaped. So it allows you to have equal access to all 8 directions on a joystick. Joysticks are 8-way nowadays. So you can hit all of the diagonals just as much as you can hit a down, left, right, and up. However, some people prefer an octagonal gate. So the octagon will limit those diagonal inputs, but will allow you to basically slam the bottom of the joystick into and follow the edge of it in order to make a perfect quarter circle. Like if you're trying to throw like a Hadouken in Street Fighter. So it'll aid you in that way, because otherwise you would kind of hit the edge and then travel along it in a square motion, and it's not the same if you were to go to the edge of the joystick's motion. So some people prefer that because it allows you to do those quarter circles a lot better, and also half circles and full circles if you're like a Zangief player, let's say. And some people prefer, being able to do those kind of motions without the limiting factor. They don't need that. So it's all open to preference. I personally like the octagonal gate, even though I know there's less real estate to the diagonals. Just because I found that a lot of American sticks when we were growing up were like that. They were either circular or octagonal. It was a lot easier for me to throw a Hadouken that way. Maybe I'm just a baby, but I'm going to be swapping it out for sure. But I'm mainly going to be playing shmups, so I may find that that's limiting with shmups because shmups, don't have any use for that restrictor at all, other than feel. It doesn't help you at all. So it may hinder you in the fact that you may want to have finer adjustments with diagonals in that regard. So there's also a third model of joystick called the Dragon, which is a super high quality stick. It has metal all over it. It's really heavy, and it's really cool looking. However, it's $100 more than the one that I bought. The Obsidian's $200. And the drone is actually the cheap one, the $130 one. That one is less moddable and less heavy, and it's a really good entrant joystick, I would say. But it's not up to the level that the Obsidian and the Dragon are in terms of how high quality it is and how good it feels and how good it looks. But the Dragon is one that I don't think it looks as sleek, so I don't like it as much. It's blocky and doesn't have. It looks like it was. It looks very industrial. Like that's the best way I could describe it. It's very metallic. It has like a lot of lights all over it, and it is really heavy. So it's less convenient to bring her over to a friend's house, let's say. And it also isn't like, you know how a Ferrari is cool because it's like curvy? You know what I mean? Like it looks like one part curves into the other. Well, it's not like that with the Dragon. It's not all one solid piece. It looks like it's kind of like a building or something. You know what I mean? Like it looks like there are different sections of it, so it doesn't look as sleek.
And this is the more expensive one, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I bet it feels good, like but it doesn't look as good to me. So I ended up getting the middle brand one, and out of the box it can play PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PC with X input. So I was able to during all these times, all this time leading up to it, I pre-ordered it. I was able to get some really cool super converters that will allow me to use it on Xbox One. And there's a Raiden 5 is on Xbox One. That's my primary reason for doing that. And
how much did the converter cost?
It was $40. It wasn't too bad. And I also bought a different converter made by the same company for my Neo Geo, believe it or not, to use a PS4 controller on a Neo Geo. So I'll be able to use the stick to play Windjammers. So I'm really excited.
and everyone, there is your weekly Windjammers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I can't wait. And I'm super excited. I'll be able to play 360 as well with it. Because I got another converter for that. I got like 3 different converters. But
and this ended up costing you like $1,000, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, what's cool about the converters is that they're rated really highly and they're lag free. They're kind of just like pass through the system, the signal to the system. So they're really highly rated in comparison to the ones that like converters in days past. So I'm really excited to get this. Oh, go ahead.
I have a feeling that people who are really into joysticks would be not the same people, but act similarly to the people who are really into building computers, and they'll spend the extra money to get the better parts, and they'll really go all out to make it like the perfect joystick. So I can, even though I joke about everything costing all this money, I can see someone going to those steps, because I know that I mean, I'm not a huge computer builder, but I've built computers and I know what it takes. I've known people who've done water cooling and all those little things that really aren't necessary but cool, and really kind of, I guess you could say, add to the experience. So
and I'm even planning with a friend on making some art for it
That's really neat.
To customize it. They haven't come out with the replaceable like art plexiglass for it yet, but they pretty much do that with every popular joystick nowadays. So we're gonna plan it, and then when it finally comes out, I'll buy the plexiglass for it. And I bought special gold buttons. And a gold bat top. Like they're actually like metallic.
Fancy.
Yeah. I'm really excited.
Do you know what art you plan on doing? Like with general theme?
It's gonna be bee themed because kind of what I mentioned last episode. It's going to be themed after Dodonpachi.
Yeah.
And
I first thought you meant the Bee Movie because I know you're a really huge fan of the Bee Movie. And
who isn't?
Well, Lotus,
and then I thought
when you
for a
edit
second,
this,
then remembered.
You're gonna have to duplicate.
Yeah, every time you say Bee Movie, I'm gonna have to make it go a little faster. I'll intersplice the trailer for Shrek and make it a little clearer and a little louder every time.
But just wrapping this up, I will receive that on Thursday, and I also plan on making another joystick, but for classic systems. There is a board that somebody made that accommodates basically all the old classic systems, like PS2, PS1, Super Nintendo, PC Engine. They all have shmups on them.
Spectrum or Amstrad?
Unfortunately, you know what's really funny? What's
Commodore
really
64.
Funny
yeah, if I can't play Weird Dreams with a stick, then what's even the point?
What's really funny is the joystick supports everything but Genesis, and if it did support Genesis, it would support Commodore 64 because they all have the same connector for their controller port.
And so does Atari, right? Because I remember
so does
that
Atari. So does Amiga.
Because I remember that because Sonic the Hedgehog is a one-button game, you can actually, or Sonic the Hedgehog 1 is a one-button game. You can actually beat it with an Atari stick with the one button because everything is jump.
Is there a reason why you decided to make another stick? Like, could you not get a converter for yours, or do you just want a separate one for the two?
So here's the thing. You can get converters for everything as low as the 360 and PS3. That's as old as the systems go for those type of converters, except for the Neo Geo for some reason. That company for some reason was convinced to make Neo Geo converters. But all the other converters actually upconvert, which makes more sense because if you bought a joystick in the PS2 era, you would want to use it on a PS4 now, right?
Yeah. But if you buy one now, it's not
correct.
As likely that you'd want to use it for older games because not everyone is as nerdy as we are.
Correct, right. So I'm not going to cannibalize the beautiful joystick that I'm getting right now. It's a really nice joystick, and I decided that if I was going to replace the board in this joystick that I'm getting, the Obsidian, it would take away the ability to control the LEDs on it. So I didn't want to mess with that. And also the multi console board does not do anything past the PS3 era anyway. So I'm just going to make a brand new joystick, come up with a design with a friend for a wooden box, use really nice hardwood and stain it myself, and make it a really cool project, and make all the cabling and everything for the old systems. It's going to be a job, but it'll be really fun and very satisfying once I'm done it. So having said that, I'm really excited. I'll be talking about these projects as I'm getting through them. But I would like to pass on the torch here to Lotus, who has a bit to say about the new Binding of Isaac expansion.
Yeah, it's been out for a little while now, but now I've actually had a chance to play a bunch of it. So I think we've mentioned it a bit on a previous Corrective Consciousness podcast, but The Binding of Isaac Rebirth has had a DLC expansion called Afterbirth, and more recently, I think January 3rd or something early January, there was Afterbirth Plus, which is I think the last expansion is going to have. So once again, it's a game changer.
Why do you say that?
because I think it's supposed to be the last one. I remember,
okay.
I think Old Man...
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. I think Old Man Stompy had said he'd taken a look at the achievement list, and the one you get for... You know how there's always an achievement for platinuming the game? That one, I think, says something like, you could stop now. And like, seriously, for God's sake. But there's a bunch going on with this game. So there are some new enemy types. Some enemies might have slightly different moves, like... There's when you beat a boss, sometimes you unlock an angel room or a devil room, and if you go into a devil room, there's a chance that you might have to fight Krampus, and he has an yeah, I know. He has an attack where he fights like the Fallen, where he does a 4-way laser barrage, up, down, left, and right. Now, there is the slight chance that he might do the 4-way laser barrage in an X pattern, so you can't just be like, oh, I'll get into a diagonal. Like, it's still not that big of a deal. You can go into a halfway point between the diagonal and the horizontal, but you have to remind yourself to do that.
Would you say that his barrage is kind of like a berserker?
Berserker barrage.
No, just laser. Tornado claw. Yeah, so like it's
Boomerang. Oh wait, no.
Yeah, get the hell out. No, but so there are little subtle changes like that. There's a new kind of enemy that looks like the larger fat enemies that slowly walk toward you and maybe sometimes shoot projectiles, but these are stone and invincible, but also don't hurt.
What?
But they also don't hurt you. They push you, like they just kind of walk into you and push you. And the problem with that is that you're trying to kill the enemies in the room, because if you kill the killable enemies, then these new guys just vanish, they're gone. But the problem is you can't shoot through them unless you have the Spectral Tears power up, so it's really hard to maneuver around them. Yeah, but it can be really difficult to maneuver around them and hit the enemies, and God forbid they push you into an enemy, and it's just like, like you can force your way through them, but it kind of sucks. So there's stuff like that. And as Old Man Stompy had mentioned in Corrective Consciousness, there are also portals sometimes that just spawn enemies. So it sucks to have to deal with them, because if you try taking the enemies out one at a time, they might just keep producing them. They eventually can go on their own, but I don't know if you really want to wait for that, especially if you're playing a character that only has like 2 hits, like the Lost or the Keeper. So there are those challenges to worry about. But more interesting to me is that there's a new character and a new sort of level. Kind of 2 levels. One of the levels is, I might have mentioned that there's a greed mode in Isaac Afterbirth, and what greed mode is you select a character, and you start in basically an arena, and there are 2 item rooms off to the side. One is free, and one requires a key to open, and there's a shop up north, so you can buy keys and whatever power-ups you'd like, and every time you buy something, stuff like replenishes, or if you buy a power-up, then a new one will come in its place, so you can keep buying as long as you have money. And as you step on a button in the center of the arena, a wave of enemies spawns, and after time passes, or when you kill the wave, another wave spawns, all the way up to 8. And each time a wave spawns, coins will just appear. So that's how you get money to buy stuff, hence, greed mode. And the last 2 waves, so there's 10, the last 2 waves, 9 and 10, are bosses. And if you want to, you could step on the Switch one more time and get a sort of round 11 out of 10, which is not required, because once you beat round 10, the exit to the next floor opens. But if you want to do a round 11 out of 10, and you kill that boss, then an angel or devil room will open up, and you could potentially get one last free power-up, which is kind of nice. So it plays out the way regular Isaac would, where you have the basement, then you go down the next level to the caves, then to the depths, then to the womb, then to Sheol, then to a shop floor, where there's just a shop and no item rooms, like no free items, and then finally you go to Ultra Greed stage, which only consists of 2 rooms. One is a relatively minor boss fight, like a low-level boss, or maybe one of the greed types, and then you fight Ultra Greed, who is a royal pain in the ass because he has crazy damage scaling and insane health, and he just kind of is relentless. Now, all of that has already been around. But now there is a greedier mode, and I don't know what happens. Yeah, and I don't know what happens at the end of that. All I can tell you is that instead of 10 rounds, there's now a mandatory 11 rounds, and I haven't gotten to the bottom of anything. But I'm not particularly looking forward to it either. So that's one of the new modes. Before I get to the other level thing, there's a new character. His gimmick is that I think he has like 2 hearts and mediocre stats, but what's cool about him is he has a new item. He starts with it, called the Void. When you use it, it looks like nothing happens. It has no effect on enemies. The only thing it works on is power-ups that you get in an item room. So I don't mean hearts for health or coins for money or anything like that. I mean when you enter an item room that you've unlocked, there will be some kind of power-up floating there that you can collect. Now, if you do not want to collect it yourself, then you can use Void on it. And one of 2 things will happen. If the item is passive, like a health boost or a stat boost of some kind, or an orbital that flies around you for defense, or something that has a constant effect, then if you want to use the Void on it instead, then there's a chance that it might lower your range, which is bad, but there's a much higher chance of it slightly raising a random stat. So you probably would not want to use the Void if it's a stat booster, because then you could just do that anyway, but you might want to use it on items that you either have no use for or just power-ups that kind of suck. There's one power-up in particular. There are various syringes in the game of different colors that'll boost like 2 different things, like speed and damage, or speed and range, or speed and shot speed, like the actual velocity of your bullet. But there's one power-up, the yellow one, which when you pick it up, it says it raises all of your stats, but then it shuffles them. And that can be amazing, but I usually get shafted with that, and I'll have like insane speed and like the worst damage output ever. So like I just try to avoid it when I can. So if you use the Void,
that seems really annoying.
It might be great, but in my case I just get unlucky. So that's the kind of thing I would use the Void on, to just give myself a stat boost and call it a day. Now that's if you have a passive item. If you have an active item, you can only ever carry 1 active item at a time. So if you were to pick up an active item, you would put the Void down and pick the active item up, right? And then you could use the active item when it's charged. But if you use the Void on in a room where there's an active item waiting around, then number 1, you'll experience its effect immediately. But number 2, the Void will assimilate its effect. So the next time the Void charges up, when you use it, it'll have that item's effect. So,
oh, wow.
And you can do this repeatedly on many items. So you can have like a stupid power up by the time you get to the end of a run that's doing like 5 or 6 different things. It can get into like absolutely crazy territory. So you have to survive that long to get that far, but that can potentially be one of the most broken items in the game. So that's pretty cool. I haven't really done anything with this character yet, and I've never found the Void with anyone else, so I don't know if that's a coincidence or if it really is exclusive to this character, but that's pretty cool. The last new thing about Afterbirth, before I stop talking about my segment here, is actually a level called the Void. This place is kind of amazing.
I'm excited to hear about it.
It's ridiculous. Now, what I had mentioned before is that there's a special boss called Hush. This thing is kind of a big deal because...
like from Batman.
Precisely. The thing is, there are 2 things that can happen in the game depending on how fast you play it. So if you beat Mom in the Depths 2, which means that you've gone through Basement 1, Basement 2, Cave 1 and 2, and Depths 1 and 2, Mom is the boss of Depths 2. If you beat Mom by the time... I forgot, but I want to say 20 minutes has gone by, then you have the option of trying a boss rush challenge, which can get you 2 power-ups and an achievement if you beat it for the first time. Well, if you beat the Womb 2 within, I think, a half hour, then you get the option of going into a new level. Normally what happens when you beat the Womb 2 is you can either ascend to the Cathedral and then follow through to the chest and beat the game, or fight Mega Satan, or you can go down into Sheol and then the Dark Room and then beat the game, or fight Mega Satan. But if you beat the Womb 2 quickly enough, then a side exit will open up, and you can drop into the Blue Womb, which is only 1 floor. And before anything even happens, you know it's going to be terrifying, because, number 1, there are 4 gold chests just immediately when you spawn. They don't necessarily guarantee power-up items, but it's usually like a pile of coins and some keys. Maybe you will get a power-up item, who knows? So if you have the keys for them, you can open them. So that's already scary because the game's just feeding you. You know, it's just like, oh, whatever. It's like whenever you see 100 healing items in front of, like, you know, in a video game before the end of before a boss fight, you're like, oh no. Like in Doom, when they just give you all the guns, you're like, oh, here it comes. So they give you 4 golden chests, and there are not 1, but 2 item rooms that require keys to open. So you just have 2 item rooms immediately. And not only do you have 2 item rooms, but in each item room, there are 2 items, and you can choose one, whichever one you like better. So, again, it's like, oh boy. And there's a shop. So they're giving you all this stuff and before you fight Hush. And then sure enough, you know, when you leave that main area, you fight Hush. And I think I've already described what a pain in the ass he is. Just projectiles everywhere, and he'll occasionally go into the ground where you can't hit him and just spawn enemies or something. And he also has high scaling health, like Ultra Greed, so he really takes forever to kill, even if you're powered up, because I think his health is proportional to how powerful you are, so you can't...
I was just thinking how trolly it would be if this is like the hardest boss.
Oh, it's not.
I'm just saying, and they give you all these power-ups, and then you go into the fight, like that you're prepared for like the last boss, the hardest boss in the game, in the last expansion, and he's just like a pushover, and you're just like, wait, really?
That'd be kind of funny. No, but Hush is a royal pain in the ass, but now that Afterbirth Plus is out... If you beat Hush after you have Afterbirth Plus, then you unlock a level called the Void. So the way you can access the Void is once you've unlocked it, you are now always able to maybe access it. So you will have to play through most of a run, and when you beat Mom, there's a really small chance that a portal to the Void might just open and you could choose to enter it. It's like 10 or 15% chance. So that's if you beat Depths 2. If you beat the Womb 1, the chance slightly increases, like it might be like 20. And if you beat the Womb 2, it slightly increases to like 25%. However, if you're quick and you unlock the Blue Womb and you beat Hush, if you ever beat Hush, you will get access to the Void. So when you go into the Void... This place is amazing because it's kind of an amalgamation of all the levels you've previously played. Like, you might enter a room and fight some rando, like, weak enemies, and the backdrop is kind of like the basement, and then the very next room, the backdrop will be like the depths. Like, you're kind of, like, showcasing all the levels you've been into, but the rooms themselves are pretty easy. Like, normally if you ascend to the last regular level, the chest, like, every room is sort of a boss fight. Here, the rooms are pretty normal. The catch is that you're looking for the new final boss, Delirium. And the problem is, when you look on your map as you navigate the game, you always get a good sense of what's coming up. And it shows you the next room, like the rooms next to the ones you are in, so you could see, like, oh, that's a locked door, or oh, that's the boss room. The boss rooms are labeled with skulls. Well, there's one small problem. At the end of it, like, a skull room indicates the end of a dungeon, right? That's where a boss is. And if you're playing on a floor with the Curse of the Labyrinth, the dungeon's like twice as big, and there are 2 item rooms, and then there are 2 boss rooms in a row. But with this, there are just plain multiple boss rooms, like with the skull indicator. So it's like, which one's Delirium? You know, like the first time I played this dungeon, the first time I played this dungeon for real, I beat some random room, and I see that there are boss rooms to the north and west, and I'm like, what? So I'm like, which one do I... So if you go into a boss room, you might fight Delirium, or you might fight some random boss from anywhere else in the game. And if you fight some earlier boss, you will get a power-up for having beaten a boss. So that's nice, but if you're playing with a character like the Lost or the Keeper that dies in 2 hits, then... You know, and any boss fight's a scary proposition, right? So you're experimenting every time. And what makes things even weirder, I don't know if they've patched it out or if they will patch it out, but you can get a bunch of tarot cards in the game, and they each have different abilities, most of them amazing. One of them is called the Emperor, and what the Emperor does is it immediately warps you to the boss room. And if you're... and
if you're not prepared.
Well, here's the problem. Number 1... which boss room, and number 2, for that very reason, there's actually a chance it'll crash the game if you use it in the Void. So, like, you really don't want to do that ever.
crashing a bug, or is that intentional?
I think it's a bug, but good question. I don't know. I think it's a bug, though. But I think in the best case, it'll take you to a random boss room and just see what happens. But then there's the boss Delirium. This boss is brutal. Of course, it has the scaling health, so you're going to take a while no matter what. But this thing has its main form, which looks kind of like Hush, and it shoots out a bunch of shots in a sort of circle around it. Hush has way more shots going on, so Delirium isn't as bad as all that at the start. But the problem is, he'll shoot shots, and then he'll teleport to some random location in the room, and he'll take the form of some other boss. So he's kind of like a showcase of all previous bosses if you let it take long enough.
Oh, wow.
And he'll be each form for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then he'll move on and do something else. The problem, though, is his animations are faster than the actual bosses he's emulating. So normally that's not that big of a deal if he shoots projectiles or something, but if he turns into a boss where the gimmick is it just moves around the room a lot and just don't touch it, or like it chases you, he'll be on you before you know it. It's just like, oh god. And he'll even turn into like Mom, so all of a sudden he'll disappear, and you're like, what? And then a shadow comes over you and the foot stomps down. It's actually really easy to avoid, but you have to just be aware that that can happen. He sucks, man. Like, he's really fast, and he teleports everywhere, and he takes a new shape every time, and he's spamming projectiles.
Jeez.
He's a pain in the ass. Like, I managed to beat him with Azazel, but the problem is that Azazel's basically the game's easy mode. Like, his health consists just of black hearts at first. And if you lose a black heart, then you'll damage everything in the room, but that heart's gone. You know, it's not part of like a refillable heart container like the red hearts. Now, you can get health boosts that give you actual red hearts. And by the time I got this far in the game, I had something ridiculous, like 6 red hearts and a bunch of extra temporary hearts. So I was able to beat him without worrying about dying. But it was more like, man, this guy's hard, like as I was fighting him. Now, the only thing that makes Azazel not like a perfect character is that he has a laser breath attack, but it's very short range. So like it hits really hard, especially for early game, but you pretty much have to get up in the boss's face to do it, and that really sucks with something like Delirium or Hush. Like, even most regular bosses, not that big of a deal unless you're in a tiny room, but Hush and Delirium and Ultra Greed with Azazel just are not fun. So I was happy that I was able to get through Delirium with Azazel. But with other characters, they'll have longer range with their attacks, but I'd better hope for some amazing power-up combinations. Either that or the Chaos card. That, Pyro in particular, it's a reference to Chaos Orb. Do you remember that one from Magic the Gathering?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Do you remember what that card does?
I do not, though.
Okay, it's a really
That's
old...
what Chaos Confetti is
making fun of.
right?
Yeah.
So Chaos Orb is the card where you literally throw it in the air and flip it, and whatever it lands on, and it kills. So with the Chaos card, you throw it, and it just goes until it hits the end of the room. It just goes in a straight line, and whatever it touches dies, including stupid bosses like Mega Satan or Ultra Greed. Like
That's awesome.
Yeah, like Mega Satan is a 2-phase boss. Like when you kill him, he comes down, then comes back up as a skeleton. So the Chaos card will kill phase 1, or if you use him on phase 2, it'll kill phase 2.
Wow.
And same goes for Hush. If you kill like the blue baby version of Isaac, then that goes away, but then you have to fight real Hush. But if you use it on real Hush, then real Hush dies. So I'm assuming it works the same for Delirium. And when I get to Delirium with the Lost or the Keeper, I really think I just better have a Chaos card, because this boss sucks. Like, it's kind of fun to play with a character that actually has health, but when you're only allowed to get touched once, it's such a pain in the ass. Like, there is a power-up where every time you get hit, you drop coins. It's supposed to be used where if you really, really want to afford that item, but you're just a couple coins short, so you're like, the hell with it, I'll walk on some spikes or something. But with the Keeper, his health is coins, so if he ever gets hit, he'll drop potential health. You just better be quick about picking it up. But with the Lost, you like, he doesn't have that. Like, if he loses his Holy Mantle, it's gone. And then if he gets touched, he dies. So, like, I think I'm gonna need a Chaos card. Like, that's how I beat... and believe it or not, I was able to beat Hush for real with the Lost. So maybe I can get that good with Delirium. But with Ultra Greed, I cheated so bad for Ultra Greed. Like, there's a power.
It's not cheating; it's in the game.
Oh, I know, but it's such BS. Like, there's a power up you can get where if you die, you resurrect as the Lost, and normally that sucks. But it's sort of like one last shot. Like, maybe you could do this, not really, but go ahead and try if you'd like. So I was playing Greed mode, and I got all the way to Ultra Greed with not the Lost, and I had that power up, and then I intentionally died. I respawned back outside the Greed room, so I'd have to redo the fight. But I had a Chaos card. So I have not played any of this mode with the Lost. I just respawned in the last room as the Lost. I walk into Ultra Greed and just kill him with the Chaos card. And it's like, you got the achievement for beating him with the Lost. I'm like, yeah. So, like, I might have to pull some shenanigans like that, or at least just find a Chaos card as the Lost to fight Delirium, because Delirium is ridiculous. Like, he's fast, and he's also everywhere. Like, while his radius shots are firing out, suddenly he's in the upper left of the room. It's ridiculous. One last thing I'll say is when you beat Delirium, that ends the run. You don't get to do the Cathedral of the Chest. Like, you have chosen the Void. That's it. And you get one last end-game cutscene for having beaten that, and it's the one that makes the most sense out of all the Isaac cutscenes, because they all make sense if you really, really think about them, but they're generally symbolic. This one's a little more clear-cut, and also you should probably just know what's going on by now, because this game's been out for a very long time. So it was an interesting, I don't know if I'd call it a satisfying ending. Like, yeah, I beat it. It's just more melancholy, because this whole game's really pretty miserable, but it's a cool thing to see. So now there's about 1,000 characters I have to beat Greedier mode with, and I have to do...
Is there, like, achievements for all of them, or is it just a personal achievement?
No, there's achievements for all of them. So I have to beat Greedier mode with everyone. I have to beat Delirium with everyone except for Azazel.
Jeez.
And I have to do everything with the new character and with the Keeper. Like, the only thing I've done with the Keeper is beat Mom. Like, the earliest boss you can get an achievement for. Like, I am so not... Or I might have beaten the Womb 2 with them. I'm so not looking forward to doing, like, the top tier bosses with the Keeper, because the Keeper has a shotgun blast, but he's slow, and you cannot be slow when you only have 2 health, because there are some enemies who are extremely easy to kill, but their basic attack is rushdown, and against the Keeper, that's really not good. Like, all of a sudden, they're scary. So, I'll be occupied for quite some time, I think. This is not a game I'm going to try marathoning, because these are all hard challenges now. Like, I had done most of the hard challenges, so now the only new challenges that unlocked are harder ones. So, like, I basically only have the hard stuff, and it's all in a row. It's like, no thanks.
Out of all the games that I've seen you play over the years, this is by far my favorite to watch you play. So yeah, I'm really glad that they keep coming out with additions to it, because
the money
watching
to
you
content
play
ratio
is so much fun.
Yeah, the money to content ratio is absolutely ridiculous. Like, Rebirth plus Afterbirth plus Afterbirth plus is probably going to be something like maybe like $25 or something. And I've put like 348 hours into this game.
Jesus Christ.
It's, yeah, I mean, like...
You could play it over and over and over again, literally.
Well, the thing is, it's not even like, well, perfected it. I think I'll start again because I like it so much. Like, I have not perfected it. Like, goddamn. Like, I did for Rebirth, but not the Afterbirth expansion. And now there's Afterbirth Plus, and it's like, oh, God. So, like, my achievement count went from, like above 90% to, like, 80. And I'm like, oh. So, yeah, I'll be occupied for quite some time.
Well, having said that, I think this is a good place for us to stop this week. I really like having this this segment in order to go into detail about these things, because we're really passionate about what we like. And especially with something new always coming up and us being excited about it, I like getting the opportunity where we can expound upon it and not make our regular segments in Corrective Consciousness too long for our audience here. Make it a little bit digestible. If somebody wants to go into the major detail that we want to, they can listen to this Reactive Consciousness segment.
And if they really want to stick with the canon of this show, they should listen to every single episode.
Yeah. This episode is canon. So, having said that,
this episode is canon.
Reactive Consciousness is reactive. But please let us know what you think of the format of the sister podcast, and we will continue refining it and see whether people like it. So we will catch you next Thursday with another Reactive Consciousness.
Until next time, everyone.
Catch ya.